Warning: this podcast features adult subject matter, adult language, and things not meant for children to hear. Viewer discretion is advised. You've been warned.
If it's Thursday, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of appropriate ages, to the latest episode of the I'm No Joe podcast, the show where every armchair quarterback can feel like Eddie Bravo. I'm Corsiv, your hostess with the mostest. The meter does many things. This evening, I have got with me, as usual, my favorite sidekick over here, Golf G Vapes. How you doing this evening, brother?
Another lovely day in paradise. 79 degrees here today.
Nice.
What more can you ask for?
Hell yeah. Not a bad way to spend a day for sure. Well, we are running a little short-staffed this evening, but life happens, and we are just going to dive right into it here. So we are going to kick things off the way we like to around here, with a little bit of news and recent events, fight confirmations, fight cancellations, official rumor confirmations and denials, things of that nature, all the fun stuff that has come from the MMA world since we spoke to you wonderful folks last week. First one we've got to kick off here actually jumps back a little bit. If you didn't see it, you can still go back and catch it now. I'm sure it's on the Paramount Plus replay section by now. UFC 327, we talked about it last week, had a little bit of controversy. The Padilla versus Medeiros fight was initially ruled for Padilla, overturned because there was a miscalculation in the scoring to a majority draw. Realistically, I and everyone who was watching it with me thought that Medeiros realistically won that fight, but after the point deduction, a draw seemed much more fitting than Padilla running away with it, as he was busted the fuck up and getting cracked left and right. But after the announcement of the official scoring, turning it to a majority draw, Padilla understandably got upset because they took his win away, filed with the Florida State Athletic Commission for an appeal. They read it today and said, no, you're lucky they gave you the draw. You're absolutely not getting the draw overturned back to a win. Sorry, buddy. Catch that fucking draw instead of an L. So Padilla's attempt at trying to get that overturned is turned down. That being said, we got news yesterday. Carlos Ulberg underwent ACL repair surgery after his fight with Yuri Prohaska. Generally, that means at the very least a couple weeks out before you can start training again, and then a couple weeks of training, and then you can get back to actually hard sparring and real training again, because you can't rush that one. Carlos Ulberg had surgery over the weekend and was back to light training yesterday afternoon. Obviously, he's not kicking a heavy bag with a fucking surgically repaired ACL that's a couple days old, but he is up and he is moving and he is getting back after it as quickly as he will physically be able to. So it's going to be interesting to see how long it takes him to get back to fighting shape and who they're going to throw at him once he's ready to defend that belt for the first time. Obviously, we didn't get a chance to talk about it because it just happened last Friday after the show was already over, but we did find out almost immediately when it happened that last Friday, Arman Sarukian and basically his entire team, 3 or 4 different teammates and a coach, were all kicked off of an American Airlines flight on their way to their RAF match last weekend because they were standing up in the back of the plane and refused to get seated as the plane was getting ready to take off. Now, this is not a private flight. This was a regular fucking commercial American Airlines flight, and you don't get to do that shit. When you get told to sit down because the plane's taking off, you have to sit the fuck down because the plane is taking off. There's no two ways about it. When Armin and his crew refused to sit down, they kicked him off the fucking plane. An hour later, Armin was getting on a private jet at the same airport to fly there anyway, so I don't see what the big fucking deal was, but Armin, being Armin, had to cause a fucking scene and cause everyone else on that plane to get delayed because him and his buddies were being douchebags. So, not really much of a surprise, but just something interesting that did happen over the course of the weekend that not a lot of news outlets covered, but is definitely worth talking about, because Armin, for all of his fucking credentials inside the cage, has just shown time and time again that he is an absolute fucking asshole outside the cage. And considering the path he wants to be on in the UFC, and how openly Dana and everyone at the UFC has said all his bullshit that he's getting into outside of the cage is only making it longer before he'll get a chance to get back in the cage and get up to where he, rightfully should be fighting. You'd think by this point the light bulb would fucking go off. You mind your P's and Q's, behave yourself for a couple of fucking months, and get yourself the title shot that you probably should have gotten 2 years ago. But Armin, being Armin, has decided no, he's just going to turn it up to 11. And here we are, almost 3 years since he was arguably knocking at the door for the title shot. And he has now been flat out told, you will not get one, period.
Can you say born retarded can't fix it?
You can lead a horse to water, but sometimes it's just going to put its nose in and try and breathe.
That's it.
Armin is a classic case of one of those, because he literally was told by Dana. Dana said flat out at a press conference, if Armin could get his behavior in line and actually be ready and start showing that he wants to be the champion, maybe we'd reconsider it. But as of right now, he's acting like a toddler throwing tantrums every other fucking week. And look how well that has worked for everyone else who has ever fucking tried it. So, that being said, we do actually have a pair of change-ups coming down towards this weekend's UFC Vegas 116. The first one we found out about on Monday. The second one we found out about on Tuesday. The first one, Lucas Rocha is out for undisclosed reasons. So they are keeping Rafael Filho on the card, and now he will be fighting Cody Durden on 5 days' notice. So there is that. The other one, another Lucas, go figure, Lucas Brennan this time is in to take on Francis Marshall in a fight that they just added. This one they announced Tuesday. Lucas Brennan was a Bellator fighter, kind of been sitting in the wings like a lot of Bellator's fighters have since the PFL merger took over. This is one of those situations where apparently UFC finally decided after, a year sitting on the sidelines that they're going to give Brennan a call. And on short notice to make his debut, granted, Francis Marshall isn't necessarily a world breaker, but he's a pretty competent fucking fighter. So we're going to see exactly what Brennan has got, because short notice fights are always interesting, in my opinion. They're short notice fights for both people involved, regardless. And making your UFC debut on short notice, we've seen that go both directions. So I'm curious to see how Mr. Brennan's going to handle it this weekend. That being said, a couple weeks from now, June 6th, UFC Vegas 118, 2 more away from now. Got an interesting fight added to it here. Victor Henry taking on Bryce Mitchell, who apparently is going to stay at 135 pounds. So, going to be very interesting. Victor Henry's a hell of a fucking grappler. He's a quick fucking mover. He's got decent hands, but he's also very hittable. Mitchell could do real well against him. Not that anybody wants to see Bryce Mitchell actually do good at this point, but at least it's a decent matchup in my opinion. July 11th will be UFC 329 from the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Not the fight that anyone was really wanting, but an understandable matchup just the same. Corey Sandhagen getting back in action to take on Mario Batista. This is the highest ranked fighter that Mario Batista has been given so far. If he somehow gets past Sandhagen, it's realistically going to be hard to not talk about him in the title picture. As boring as fucking, he has been in almost all of his recent fights, he still won all of his recent fights, even against some other fellow top namers. Now he's actually getting into the top namers with rankings here that matter, because Sandhagen is right at the top of the fucking stack below the belt. So if Batista can somehow get Sandhagen negated and get a W there, he's right in that fucking position to be in the conversation for one of the next title shots. On the other hand, though, hopefully, at least from my point of view, Sandhagen can get through Batista and end his, bantamweight Cyril Gane-esque run that he's been on here, because he keeps getting W's. They're not interesting, but he keeps getting W's, and it keeps putting him into conversations for better fights. And they're boring, but he keeps fucking winning. So, you know, at some point, you have to give credit where credit is due. A W is still a W. And when you put enough together, you should be moving further up in the rankings. That's how fight rankings are supposed to work. So, this is an interesting matchup. I don't think it's really exciting to anyone, but at the same time, it's got big implications for the division itself. So, I'm not, you know, giddy about it, but I do think it is an interesting match, and I feel it's warranted. I don't think it's what we wanted, but it's warranted because it's going to make a difference in that division one way or the other. Kind of an interesting last minute one here that I got this afternoon. July 18th, the week after 329, the UFC has officially announced the matchup, but not the location yet, which is kind of weird. Fatima Klein versus Amanda Hebus, as of right now, is just set for July 18th with, quote unquote, for those listening, air quotes, no location announced just yet. But as the crow flies, several people in the know have confirmed that UFC will be a fight night in on July 18th will be in Oklahoma City, which will be the first time since 2017 the UFC has been there. They just haven't officially dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's and gotten the posters ready yet. So I'm anticipating the announcement of UFC Fight Night Oklahoma City to be coming in the next couple of weeks when we get the poster and most likely the main event for that card. But Fatima Klein versus Amanda Hebus is an interesting matchup unto itself. Hebus is on a slow decline, heading back down from the peak that she ran herself up to, and Fatima Klein has slowly but surely kind of just been quietly in the wings, taking everybody they've thrown in front of her out. So could be a very fun matchup, and especially if they put it in some place like OKC, that could be a definitely interesting addition to a card like that. Last one here. Just got this one this afternoon as well. We talked about the announcement last week. We got the official confirmation and the date this week. May 30th will be the BKFC Birmingham event where Darren Till will make his debut against Aaron Chalmers. Aaron Chalmers at this point, realistically more known for his reality TV stint than any of his fighting outs. Aside from maybe the time when Floyd Mayweather beat the shit out of him effortlessly. But still, going to be an interesting matchup to see where Darren Till is at this point in his career. A couple of interesting announcements here on the UFC side of things. The first one, for the first time in, I believe, 9 years or 8 years, Colby Covington has officially been removed from the official UFC rankings. He has been in there way longer than anyone else has, considering his time being inactive. Usually, it's 18 months and then you're off the fucking list. Colby has been inactive for, I think, going on 26 months at this point. It's over 2 years since he's actually climbed into a cage, and he was still, up until this last weekend, in the official UFC rankings. Not the fucking media produced ones, but the official UFC rankings. So the fact that even the UFC was willing to kick Colby out of the rankings at this point, better late than never, but it tells you flat out they're done. Like, the shtick can only carry you so far. You still have to actually be able to fight. And when you don't have a chance to do your shtick because you're not fighting, you have nothing working for you. Sorry, pal. Back at a fucking line where you belong. That being said, kind of an interesting roster maneuver this weekend, or last weekend rather. Kind of becoming commonplace, at least every couple of weeks after a UFC event, you're seeing the UFC release a couple of fighters trying to thin down the roster a little bit. We got a pair of them cut this last weekend. Over the weekend, the UFC has officially released Shamrock, which a lot of us were wondering why he was still there to begin with. He was another one that got in based off of the hype that his teammates had put forth, not anything that he had done himself necessarily. But the other one, the one that surprised me a little bit more, Pedro Munoz. The UFC released Pedro Munoz, who had 23 fights under the UFC banner in the last 12 years. Considering how thin that division is right now and how much shakeup is happening in that division at the top right now, you would think Pedro would be a veteran staple that they would want to keep around knowing that they could count on him. But UFC is going to UFC, so they sent him on down the road with Shamrock. I have very little doubt that Pedro's going to land somewhere very soon, unless he decides after this release that he's going to just retire from combat sports. I would be willing to bet Pedro's going to find a new home pretty fucking quickly. Shem, maybe not so much. He might end up going back to the B leagues, but Pedro Munoz is a name with enough talent and a resume. He'll be all right. He'll find somewhere to go. Kind of an interesting one here. Despite all the talk, all the hype, all the fucking sloppy as shit AI videos that they are pumping out as quickly as they fucking can lately for this bullshit UFC Epstein 250 card that they are putting on, we got confirmation that today, Thursday, just, a few weeks out from the event itself, the announcements having been made about all the fights going down, Ayman Zahabi still has not been sent a contract to fight Sean O'Malley on the White House card. They announced that fight. They've talked to him. They've had him do interviews about that fight. But here we are just a couple weeks out, and they still haven't sent him a contract for it yet. So once again, we had this issue last summer with several big name fights. But once again, it seems like this summer we're starting out where the UFC is announcing fights that they have proposed, but still haven't even sent out contracts for, let alone received signed contracts to confirm yet. Not necessarily the biggest fight on the card, obviously, but the fact that this was one of the ones that Dana himself used to try and get people excited about that card, and they haven't even sent both guys in the fight their fucking contracts yet. Very sloppy to say the least. We'll see if that means more than just lazy paperwork in the next couple weeks as we get a little closer to that circus. But as of right now, officially speaking, not everyone announced to fight on that card has even been sent a contract to fight on that card yet. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out as we get a little closer to it. Next one we got here. This one had kind of been hinted about a couple times, but we got the official confirmation this week. Dustin Poirier wants to box. He's a great fucking boxer. He's still young enough to be able to do that, make some money, do some influencer boxing, fuck up Jake Paul or somebody like that. There's absolutely room in the boxing world for Dustin Poirier to go have a couple adventures. The problem is, he still has 3 fights on a contract with the UFC, and the UFC will not let any fighters under contract compete anywhere other than the UFC unless they are released from their contract. And someone like Dustin Poirier is going to have one hell of a time trying to convince Dana White and the UFC to release him from his contract with 3 fights still left on it so he can go make money somewhere else in boxing.
It's surprising you brought that up because I think was it back in December when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast. They actually talked about it then too, saying, "Yeah, I want a box," and he's already ran it past them about possibly going even under the Zuffa banner.
I was just going to say, he
And
actually
they
mentioned
fucking
thinking
shut
about
him
trying to do
down.
it with them, and they wouldn't let him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking. I'm like, dude, the guy's retired from MMA. Let the guy go make money. Fuck it, dude.
Well, he's going to be a UFC Hall of Famer at some point, one way or another. You would think, since he's still under contract with the UFC, and the UFC literally has their own boxing organization now,
Yeah,
this would be the
let him go
guy he would
box.
want to be the first one to be able to make that crossover. He's great on the mic most of the time, unless he's fighting Connor. He's a good fighter, He's a dude you know is going to show up. This would be one of the guys you would want to set the example, to set the standard for MMA fighters potentially wanting to come over and do boxing under that Zuffa banner.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense to just not let those guys go in there because guess what? I'm sure they'll have a lot easier time doing cross promotion with boxing than they will with MMA because they were so anti cross promotion. It's fucking ridiculous. And I mean, from what we've heard, knowing that now Dana is completely hands off with matchmaking and all that,
Yep.
and negotiations, maybe that opens the door to some cross promotion MMA, but I doubt it.
It would be nice.
Yeah,
From a
'cause, I mean,
fan's point of view, it would be nice, but realistically, we also know how that works too.
we all know that there are fighters that are in that. Okay, just for an example, say back in the day, Cain Velasquez in his peak was in his peak at the same time as somebody else who would not come over because, well, they wanted a partial cut of the UFC itself, not just a big money contract. But that could have been a cross promotional fight. I mean, we've seen a lot of champs that were in one that were huge at the time.
Look what's going on right now. Rico Verhoeven,
Yeah,
Glory kickboxing heavyweight champion, is fighting Alexander Usyk, the fucking lineal heavyweight boxing champion, in a boxing match this summer. They had a face-off over the weekend. It's pretty interesting to see the two of them together.
yeah,
That's the perfect example of how cross promotion can work.
yeah.
Both of those organizations are going to win regardless of how that fight plays.
Exactly. So it doesn't fucking matter. Like you look at there's been a lot of fighters that yes, they've made their way to the UFC, but after their prime. Instead of being able to have that cross promotion fights where you get the best in the UFC against the best in whatever other fucking thing. I mean, what's that dude over in fucking PFL right now who is just running through motherfuckers? I'm forgetting his name off the top of my head, but he's been absolutely martyring people, and I would love to see him come over to the UFC, do a cross promotional fight. But you know, it's just somebody's got a big head, and well, no, we're not gonna allow cross promotional MMA. You guys are literally doing the same fucking job just under a different company name. Get the fuck out of here. Like I get it, having promotions. We know the UFC is the pinnacle of MMA because it is the most recognized
Yeah.
name. That doesn't mean they have the pinnacle of all fighters.
No, not by any stretch.
Because there's a lot of promotions with great fighters that, had they made their move over during their peak, would have absolutely dominated people in the UFC.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately, the UFC waits until they're fucking old and. I mean, to be fair, a couple weeks ago when we got Aaron Pico and fucking that was a pretty solid fight, and that's what you expected out of those guys. However, they both came from the same fucking promotion
Yep.
over to the UFC.
Yep.
Both stumbled a little bit, also getting a little long in the tooth because they've been around the game long enough. So yeah, we're getting it, but we're not getting it when it matters. So it's a sad thing to see. I hope with all that shit it just changes the outlook of that, and maybe we get some more cross promotional. I doubt it though. Who knows? Maybe Dustin Poirier is the guy to start that fucking train for us, which would be fucking awesome. And I couldn't think of a better guy to do it.
I was just going to say, if anybody could actually put some coal in that engine and make that train start fucking rolling, realistically, it's Dustin Poirier, because he's not going to get salty and he's not going to get fucking lowball. He's not going to get nasty about it. He's just going to constantly say how much he would love to go over and show off what the UFC helped him build in the boxing world and make it very polite. He'll be very passive aggressive about it. I'm telling you right now. But if anybody's the one who could be the conductor on that fucking train and get it to realistically move, I think Dustin Poirier would be the dude. So we will absolutely be keeping an eye on that, because I'm sure he's not going to stop saying that throughout the course of the year. So we'll see how that plays out as that rolls along. But last one I've got here today is a little interesting. Obviously, this is a show about combat sports. We talk about all kinds of combat sports: Muay Thai, MMA, kickboxing, Lethwei, you name it, combat jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, straight up competitions, all forms of combat sports. We talk about just about all of it. We cover a good chunk of it. But the one thing we don't talk about here on the I'm No Joe podcast is soccer. If we did, the fan base would be more familiar with this name than they might now. But a gentleman by the name of Lalit Moti, I'm not sure how it's pronounced with the hard T or the D. That gentleman is the one who founded the $18 billion with a B Premier Soccer League, the league where all other leagues have to win their way into the Champions League. He has been the successful founder and moderator running the Premier League for several years now and has taken a personal interest in MMA. Not only has he taken a personal interest in MMA, he's taken a little bit of a personal offense to the way that Dana White specifically is running the UFC and treating MMA fighters under the UFC banner. So Lalit Moti has decided that he is going to enter himself into the world of combat sports. He has announced that he has formed a team and they are doing the preliminary groundwork for him to start an international team MMA organization. Very much like soccer, where you can have a team from any region and then they compete throughout the year. And then there's a big one at the end, final cup style or World Cup style. This has been tried several times before, but no one who has tried anything like this before has had any experience, let alone the financial backing that Lalit Moti has. This man literally has decades of experience at the highest level of sport, not only establishing this, but running this successfully to the degree that the rest of the world, save for the USA, are all in on Premier League soccer. Soccer is obviously not the biggest thing in America, but the rest of the world pays attention to that. The rest of the world makes a lot of money from that. The gentleman who's created, established, and run that for some years now, deciding to take that expertise and that financial stability and try and put it into a serious side of the MMA world, specifically to counteract and contradict the way that Dana White does things with the UFC, could be a very different ballgame. This isn't like we're talking about another potential fighters union. This isn't like we're talking about another GFL. This is a gentleman who has the experience. This is the equivalent of the Roger Goodell for soccer, essentially. The man who runs the NFL, this is their equivalent over in the world of soccer, but he doesn't just do it for one country. He does it for the goddamn world, and he's done it successfully for years now. And everyone involved makes lots of fucking money in the Premier League. This could be very interesting because whether he's actually able to pull this off or not, the fact that someone who could realistically financially compete with Turki Al-Sheikh, who's been Dana's sidekick for the last little while now, will at least shake up things enough to where we might get some changes overall. Even if they aren't able to pull this off and put the organization through, they are financially stable enough and have enough of a presence that they can shake some fucking doors. They can make some things turn a little bit differently just by threatening things from the other side of the planet if they have to. I'm not saying that next summer we're going to be talking about the Premier Fight League, not professional, but Premier. But there's also a chance that we might be as well. This isn't a little brag from a little rich guy. This is a big statement from a serious player on the other side of the planet. So I'm very curious to see how much and if he follows through with this, and if he does, where we end up, because this is not your everyday average, oh, a new organization is going to start kind of thing. This could potentially shake up combat sports as a whole. I'm here for it. I don't know if he's going to be able to pull it off, but we say it all the fucking time. It is always better when there are more organizations for fighters to go to than when there are fewer. A rising tide lifts all boats, period. So if they can pull this off, even if they don't get it right straight out of the gate, if they can pull it off, it's a good thing. But because of who it is and how much pull they have, even if they don't pull it off, this could still be interesting. So definitely going to be keeping an eye on that and seeing how this progresses as we go through the summer and as his team gets their information brought back and they start to make plans, but could be very interesting for damn sure. That is what I have got for news. You got anything over there I missed this week?
No, because I haven't really been paying attention to the news this week, to be quite honest. It's been a very busy week, so
I definitely understand that as well.
I ain't got a lot of time for much else.
Get you. So that being said, normally this would be the point where we bring the kid in and we talk about all the names that are going to be names before they are names and all that fun stuff. But the kid's the new guy at work, so he's running the closing shift, which is why he's been missing or mobile the last couple of weeks here. So with him being gone here, we're not going to run a full cans and contenders because I'm not going to give you his list. If you miss it tonight, you can always catch his list, I'm sure, on his podcast that he'll drop tomorrow. But there are some interesting matchups. UFC Vegas 16 from the, or excuse me, 116 from the Apex. Sterling versus Zalal. It's a hangover card. I'm not going to try and sugarcoat that at all. It's a fucking hangover card, and it's a bit of a rough one as well. This is another one of those cards that we talk about where it's full of contractual obligation matches. The UFC is legally required under contract to offer every fighter on the roster at least 3 fights a year, or they have to pay you out. So sometimes everybody says yes to those fights and nobody expected them to, and then those fights have to be put somewhere. Hangover cards like this tend to get a lot of those fights, and this one is no exception. There's a lot of what the fuck are we really doing on this card, but there's also a couple of interesting ones. Um, I talked about it a little while ago. Francis Marshall versus Lucas Brennan. Curious to see what Lucas Brennan can do over here. We talked about it just a minute ago. The Bellator guys have had a bit of a rough go making the transition to the UFC. Granted, not many of them have been brought over in their prime. Lucas Brennan is a little bit closer towards that, though. He's a younger gentleman. He's got a chance to come in here and still have some time to establish himself, but it's also a short notice fight against a guy who's established in the UFC already, even if he isn't a world breaker. Very interested to see how it plays out. Same thing with the following matchup, the Rafael Filho versus Cody Durden. We just saw Cody Durden not that long ago, so jumping right back into it, taking a short notice fight. Good on you, man. Good on you. That's the way to make yourself fucking known. Unless you step in on short notice and you get your ass handed to you, and then you make Rafael Filho look like a fucking genius. So this one, again, short notice fight, 4 days notice, or 6 days notice rather. So could go either way. I'm curious to see how both of those play out. Several ladies fights on this card. I'm not even going to pretend that I'm interested in all of them. Talita Alencar versus Juliana Palastri, I have very little interest in whatsoever. Neither one of them have really shown too terribly much. The one that I am interested in, though, Mayra Buena Silva versus Michelle Montague. Mayra Buena Silva has had a hell of a time since she got her ass kicked in her undeserved title attempt. Michelle Montague, on the other hand, is one of the only ladies the UFC has right now who's undefeated. She's sitting at 7-0, and she's a feisty Australian gal. I don't think Mayra Buena Silva will have much of a size advantage in this matchup. She usually does because she's one that cuts a significant amount of weight. So she's usually much bigger than the ladies that she fights. Michelle Montague is not a small bantamweight, though. She's a fairly stacked gal, and it's not thick. She's not a fat girl. She's fucking cut. She's usually in pretty goddamn good shape. You don't get to 7-0 by coincidence in this world at this point in time. So I'm very curious to see how that fight's going to play out. Excuse me. I've been very open about it. I will continue to be very open about it. I'm a petty man. Sometimes I like to see bad things happen to bad people, and I don't hide that. And this is potentially one of those situations here. The guys behind the scenes can tell you I've been screaming about Buchecha getting fucking brought over for so goddamn long since he first started talking about making the conversion to MMA from the fucking world of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, where he reigned fucking supreme for a hot goddamn minute. And then they finally brought him into the UFC. And again, like we talked about earlier, well past his fucking prime. Well past his fucking prime. And he has struggled because he's going up against guys who've been doing this half their lives. And he's been doing it a handful of years after half of his life spent in the jiu-jitsu world. Luckily for Buchecha, though, they're only making him fight Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann, to his credit, hits hard as shit, and he is fairly durable. The problem is he is very hittable, and while at one point in time he did have some wrestling prowess, that hasn't been seen from Spann in a long, long time. So if Buchecha comes in here, has been working on his fucking cardio, and has his grappling on point, he could have a good night against Ryan Spann. The problem is there's an equal opportunity here for Ryan Spann to come in against the guy who he knows wants to wrestle with him and just let his hands stop all the fucking takedown attempts. Buchecha can be stopped, absolutely. My real issue is that this fight also has a third option that no one likes. This could be 15 minutes of boring wet blanket bullshit because we know Buchecha wants to get the fight to the ground. We know Spann has some wrestling prowess, but isn't the best defensive grappler or wrestler. This could very much be 15 minutes of two dudes rolling around on the ground and be boring as shit. It is, for all intents and purposes, my contender of the week. This one could literally go any fucking way. I'm not the most excited about the possibility that it could go any way like that, but it realistically could. This main card is weak. I'm not even gonna fucking pretend here. This main card is weak as shit. Davey Grant versus Adrian Martinelli, or excuse me, Martinetti. I mean, cool. I like Davey Grant, but that fight doesn't really mean anything. Why it's on the main card, I don't fucking know. Rafa Garcia versus Alexander Hernandez is only really, in my opinion, on the main card because of all the fucking hype around Alexander Hernandez's name because his fight with Michael Johnson got pulled for betting irregularities. There's not really a whole lot in that fight that's terribly exciting. Rafa Garcia is a journeyman fighter who's had ups and downs. Alexander Hernandez, a journeyman fighter who's had ups and downs. There's not really a lot of potential excitement in that fight for me. The co-main event, I will say, at least it's interesting. Jocelyn Edwards, although she shouldn't be, is ranked number 6. Norma Dumont, although she shouldn't be, is ranked number 4. So this is essentially a fight for two ladies around the top 5, I say with air quotes, to try and put themselves in the top 3 and get themselves into title contention. Realistically, neither one of these ladies belong ranked as highly as they are. I have very, very little doubt that it's going to be a very uneventful co-main event. I would be so fucking happy to be wrong and see those ladies come out there and put on a fucking war and take fight of the night. But I am very inclined to not believe that is a possibility. The main event's a little different, though. The main event, I feel, is kind of like the opposite of the Buchecha fight. Whereas both gentlemen in the Buchecha Spann fight have great routes that they could take to get a win, or it could be boring. Realistically, at this point, Aljamain Sterling is nothing to write home about at 45. The only difference between him at 45 and him at 35 is he's cutting less weight. He's not doing anything special. His cardio hasn't improved. He's not hitting any harder. There's nothing different other than a little bit more mass between Aljo at 35 and 45. I like Yusuf Zalal. The Moroccan Devil is a motherfucker, but he's also been pretty hot and cold as of lately as well. If he comes out cold feet, Aljo's going to walk right the fuck over him, and I don't think he should. I don't know if Yusuf has what it takes to shut Aljo down on the other side of that, though. I think he could absolutely give Aljo 25 hard fucking minutes, but I don't know if he has realistically what it takes to stop Aljo. And I don't like Aljo, so that's not fun for me to say, because fuck him, fuck his rum, fuck his fake accent, fuck Aljo. But we say it all the time, credit where credit is due, even if you don't like him. Aljo's durable. Unless you're, another coach yelling from the sideline during a fight or an illegal knee, Aljo's kind of hard to get out of there. Yusuf's a good fighter, but I don't know if he's got what it takes to take this. I think he's going to give a hard 25, but I have I'm inclined to think this one's probably going to the judges, and it's going to be in Sterling's favor easily. But I don't know. Like I said, I absolutely would love to be wrong on some of these, but I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? What are you thinking over there? Anything over here get you excited, or is it all just a big pile of hangover bullshit for you? Because I can see either way.
It's not the worst hangover we've ever gotten. I mean, to be fair, last week's card was worse than this week's card.
Yes. Yes, it was.
I mean, there's a lot of them that you can tell are definitely contractual obligation fights. Of, oh, well, sure, I need a fight, I'll take one.
Right.
And there is always, right, and I'll say always at this point, it's the perennial, well, these guys are new, they need to get fights under them, so let's let
Right.
them fight and see what happens. Um, as a whole, it's subpar,
Yeah.
but it is something that I'm willing to actually tune in for quite a few of the fights for. I won't say all of them because there's no way I'm watching all of them this weekend.
Right.
For more than one reason, because I'm actually probably going to be having fire once it gets dark outside and, enjoying myself.
Oh yeah.
Which means I will miss probably the vast majority of the main card. I will be glad to miss the co-main event in Demont and Edwards because that seems like such a strange place to put that fight on this card. I would much rather see fucking, to be honest, they could put Jackson McVeigh and Cedricus Dumas as the co-main event, and I think that would be a better fight. It just, I don't think that those two girls have what it takes to make it an exciting and really get the people hyped for the main event. I get it. Your job is not a hype person when you're in the fight. Your job is to win your fight. But that fight just is boring all day to me. And I will agree with you 100%. Why is Rafa Garcia and Alexander Hernandez on the main card, especially in the People's Co-main event spot? It just doesn't add up. Hernandez seems to have a small resurgence, but it's not going to be enough to get him to anywhere. Hoffa on the other side of it, he's been. I mean, he wins two, he loses two. He wins two, he loses two. It's just going to depend on which guy fucking shows up and whether or not he does well. I'm not mad at the vast majority of the card, I'll say. Uh, I just look, I'm to the point now where the UFC has beaten down my walls so much to where I'm to the acceptance point of I have to accept that we're just going to have shitty fights for the rest of my fucking natural born life. And it's not going to get better because they want to keep going every weekend, week out, weekend, week out, weekend, week out. And so we're just doomed to have mediocrity. It's kind of like watching baseball. Yeah, it's the American pastime, but it's boring as fuck. I feel the same way about a lot of these cards, which I don't want to because I love MMA, but I keep getting just fed garbage. However, I know the flip side to that coin is in order to find those new guys that we're going to be excited about and ready to watch and root on, maybe a new favorite, we have to let them get through the garbage. They have to work their way up from the guy who's picking the trash, driving the truck, fucking to writing the checks. Right now, those guys are picking up the trash to put into the can before they can even put it in the goddamn garbage truck. That's a lot of what we're getting. That's a really terrible euphemism, but hey, whatever fucking works at this point. You know what? It was subpar, just like the rest of the fucking fights we've been getting the last couple of weeks. Actually, years. Who am I kidding? Ugh.
No, I agree. There's absolutely a couple of bright spots in this card, but there's a reason we call these fight nights hangover cards because they very much are. That being said, that'll bring us to the only section of the show that actually requires its own individual disclaimer. So, if you will. Tapology.com in no way, shape, or form supports, sponsors, or endorses the I'm No Joe podcast. Yet. That being said, Tapology does give you the option to go onto their website, make a free account, and make fantasy style MMA picks just like we do here on the show. They even let you make groups on there, so we made one. It's called I'm No Bookie, all one word, or Group 965, whatever way you need to find it. The group is open to the public. You are welcome and encouraged. Make yourself an account, join the group, and then let us know who you are, and we'll hold your picks accountable with ours in a segment that we call Tapology with TJ.
All right, we're back for another week of mediocrity. So, speaking of mediocrity, let's talk about last week. Burns Malott, UFC Fight Night, fucking Winnipeg. That's what I'm gonna call it. I don't care what fucking number they have. It was Winnipeg, Canada. We had a bunch of Canadians on the card. Not bad. Overall, everyone in the group did very well. We're looking at 50% or better across the board. Don has got to get off the bus. So whatever funk he's got going on with his picks, they're not great. He tripped over the dick hard. 295, 5 of 12 correct. Just wasn't his week. Yeah, it is what it is. Now, on the flip side of that coin, the meter squeaked out a win over Don's wife by 10 fucking points. The difference in that is so minor, even though Meter had 8 picks correct, Donna had 7. Still only a 10-point difference. Donna picked 5 of the decisions correctly. She had 1 perfect and 1 semi-perfect. It's crazy to think that that was a 10-point victory just because she had that extra decision and that 1 semi-perfect over what the meter had there. So sometimes you don't win by a lot, you just squeak them out. Now,
Sometimes that one perfect can save your ass.
Exactly. Now, speaking of squeaking things out, I know you guys are squeaking by here, being cheap, which I'm perfectly all right with, by the way. I want to make that very clear. As much shit as I talk about being cheap every week, perfectly all right with that. But if you're going to be cheap, that tells me you like free things. Tapology is free. Doesn't cost you a goddamn dime. Come over, join us, Group 965. I'm no bookie, however you got to find it. Now, if you are not one of those people who are cheap freebies, who are actually a member of the Patreon below, first and foremost, thank you. But second, you can also come over and join the I'm No Bookie group. Absolutely free. Even if you're a Patreon member, it's still free. Look, you get premium items listening for free. You don't even realize it. By coming over, joining us, let us know who you are. We tell you when you do well. We'll fucking tell you you tripped over your dick or your mud flaps, whatever it is you have, when you do poorly. But it's absolutely free. We know you like free shit. Otherwise, you wouldn't listen to us for free. With caveat of those that are members of the Patreon. So, without further ado, we're going to move on because, well, another week of shit. Another week of I'll say strange odds because there's a couple wide ones, but for the most part, as per usual, they're all coin flippy. So I'm just gonna hit a couple of the wide ones and then the one that is the widest. Rodolfo Vieira and Eric McConaughey getting a plus 240 underdog. Rodolfo Vieira a minus 300 favorite. Mind you, by the way, this is all from Caesars this week, so if you look elsewhere, know that your odds may vary slightly. They should be fairly close to similar. The next one on here that we're going to talk about, Mayra Bueno Silva, Michelle Montague. Michelle coming in as a minus 450 favorite. over Mayra Buena Silva and a plus 350 underdog. I'm pretty sure Meter touched on that earlier. There's also something else that he didn't catch in there that I'm going to mention briefly. Michelle is 5'9". Mayra Buena Silva, I think she is 5'5" or 5'6". So she's either got 3 or 4 inches in height on her, which tells you she's going to have a bigger wingspan too. Those tall girls always have a bigger wingspan. So I don't think the odds should be quite
Myra
this.
is 5'6". You are correct.
Okay. I don't think the odds are quite right on this one. I think they should be a little closer, but not much. I'm thinking like a plus 200, minus 200. But I'm no bookie. Weird how that's the name of our group. I'm just saying. So yeah, it's out there. There's money to be made there if you're brave enough. Now, next one we're gonna talk about Francis Marshall, Lucas Brennan. Brennan coming in as a plus 425 underdog. Francis Marshall a minus 575 favorite. Pretty girthy there. I'm just saying that's a little bit wider odds here. Oh, not to be
Call those
outdone.
the Bellator debut odds.
Yeah, that's it. Not to be outdone, we get the widest odds on the card in the form of Cody Durden and Hefe Filio. I'm probably martyring his last name, but anyways, Hefo is coming in as a minus 700 favorite over Cody Durden being a plus 500 underdog. That's a massively wide odd. Cody Durden is no rule breaker by any means. He's not a world breaker. He's none of those breakers. So knowing that they have those pretty wide, however, Cody Durden has been known to surprise people from time to time. I'm not telling you to go put fucking money on him because that would be an absolute travesty. But you know, there's a strange chance we've seen it. We've seen him pull their old rabbit out of the hat before. I'm not gonna hold it against him. This is MMA. It only takes one. Really does just to change that real quick. But that's the widest odd on the card. Everything else very coin flippy, like I said. Now co-main main. The co-main I didn't want to talk about, but we're gonna do it anyways. Norma Dumont, Jocelyn Edwards. Dumont coming in as a minus 205 favorite, and Jocelyn Edwards a plus 170 underdog. Now, I want to point something out here because I thought it was a little bit interesting. I looked a couple different places here. The widest odds that you're going to get on this are going to be either from Betway or FanDuel, just because, well, like I said, odds vary. But if you go the Betway route, Jocelyn Edwards, a plus 200 underdog. Norma Dumont, a minus 250. Mind you, Caesars was at a minus 200 and a plus 170. So pretty wide there. The next widest odds that I could find for this one here was on FanDuel. Jocelyn Edwards a plus 190 underdog. Norma Dumont a minus 250 favorite. So not super wide, but there's a small gap there to be had. Now, on to the last one because, well, I'm fucking tired and we need to run this shit down. It's the main event, not like we're going any farther past the main. We never did. Aljo and Yusuf Zalal. Pretty goddamn coin flippy here. They've got Yusuf Zalal sitting as a minus 130 favorite, and Aljo Sterling a plus 110 underdog.
Bruh.
So look at that. Not a huge wide odds, but they're out there and to be had. And well, who knows? You might need them. If I helped you in any way, shape, or form, which is highly doubtful, just pat me on the back. Don't waste your money in bet. But if you want to and you win the house, Patreon's down below. For those of you who don't have headphones on, you're going to have to go back and turn up the volume. That's all I'm going to say about that. That's all I got this week. Love, peace, and chicken grease. I'm off like a prom dress. I'm out of this.
Thank you, sir. Always appreciated. So, with that being said, that is going to be all we have got for this particular episode. If you are new around here, first and foremost, thank you for tuning in. If you like this kind of shenanigans, we try to get up to this pretty much every Thursday when there are fights to talk about that weekend. We go live pretty much every Thursday around 9 p.m. ish Central Standard Time on youtube.com/at I'm No Joe. Also, dual broadcast, twitch.tv/I'm No Joe. We also leave the replays up there in case you missed us live. You can catch the replay on either platform as long as they are allowed to stay there. If you missed us live on purpose, I understand that. We also own mirrors, and for that exact reason, the week after we go live, we put the all audio version of the podcast up over on anchor.fm/I'm No Joe. You can get it through your podcast consumption platform of choice there, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever you use to listen. It is up there, and it is free on all of those platforms as well. If you really like what we get up to around here, though, I would recommend subscribing and turning your notifications on so you don't miss an episode. But if you really, really like what we get up to around here, we mentioned it earlier, patreon.com/I'm No Joe. For as little as $1 a month, as much as you are comfortable giving, your patronage helps us do what we do around here. In exchange for your patronage, your dollars, and your time, first and foremost, we put your name on the end of every broadcast on the channel so everyone knows how fucking awesome you are. But more than that, any level of Patreon subscribership gets you access to the unaired and unairable, all the behind the scenes and bullshit, all the fun and fuckery that got us kicked off of OnlyFans as a platform. That's up there for the patrons to enjoy. Not to mention, we now also make Patreon exclusive content stuff just for the folks who kick in a little coin. We give a little extra back to you as well. That being said, the opposite side of that coin, if you don't like what we get up to around here, first and foremost, what the fuck are you still doing this deep into a podcast that you don't enjoy? Give it a thumbs down and then go fuck yourself. We won't even dispute it. That being said, when we wrap things up around here, Thursday nights, that is not the end of the fun, because Friday mornings, even though he's not here this evening, the other half of our podcast, the kid and his other half, drop their podcast, Slow Bake and Contemplate, over on Spreaker.com. Links to that podcast as well as their social media and their channel over on the I'm No Joe Discord, all down below whether you are watching or listening to this. Moreover than that, though, even though it's not a every Wednesday thing, there is still potential for some fuckery to pop up once in a while, not to mention our annual fundraiser to help raise money for Bikes for Kids. And in order to have any of that get across your way, you've got to go over to the Golf T Vapes channel and click on it. Links for that down in the description, whether you are watching or listening to this, either way.
Thank you, sir. By the way, those are very small odds on a Wednesday. Just when I say very small, I mean those are smaller than the widest odds we have on the card this week. Now, for those of you who don't know, the meter does do many things. So this will fill your Wednesday void, since I don't do that stuff hardly at all, almost never anymore. If you go down below, Linktree/the meter does many things, Linktree/I'm No Joe, doesn't matter how you do it, it will take you to each and every one of the many things that the meter does do. And if you feel like making salads or learning about salad making, I'm just saying there is plenty of information to go around that will point you into the the best direction for your leafy luxury life that you can enjoy. And maybe, chill out a little bit while you're doing it. Worth your time. Go see all of the many things that the meter does do.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, if you find yourself a fan of Satan's Jazz Cabbage, then you are definitely going to want to hit that other link and check out the other channel, because it is all covered over there and then some. We're dropping stuff all the time over there, and little birdie told me there might be another Lego stream coming up pretty soon on that channel, so you're definitely going to want to make sure you're subscribed and not miss that one. That being said, that is all we have got for this particular episode. So until next time, boys and girls, don't let ignorance stop you. You can root for anything.
it was kung fu fighting. Those kicks were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening.
How do I say goodbye to what we had? The good times.